Thank you all for being here. I want to start with a striking reality. Every day, your customers and prospects are generating massive volumes of engagement signals, email opens, click patterns, website visits, content downloads, digital ad interactions, and the vast majority of that data evaporates without ever being leveraged strategically. We call this data exhaust. Now, here are 3 numbers that should reframe how we think about this. Over 90% of granular engagement data typically goes unused in campaign planning. Organizations that do harness this data are seeing 3 to 5 times improvement in campaign performance. And teams that deploy AI agents trained on this data are reporting up to 40% gains in operational efficiency. This presentation is designed specifically for the 3 of you, our CMO, CDO, and COO, because unlocking this value sits at the intersection of marketing strategy, digital infrastructure, and operational execution. None of us can do it alone. But together, we have everything we need. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll walk you through what data exhaust actually is, why it matters now more than ever, and a practical roadmap for training AI agents that will fundamentally improve how we plan, execute, and optimize campaigns. Here's our agenda for today. I've structured this conversation to take us from problem to solution to action. We'll start by defining data exhaust clearly, because it's one of those terms that gets used loosely, and I want us all on the same page about the specific signals we're talking about. Then we'll do an honest assessment of where that data currently lives in our stack and why it's not being used to its full potential. From there, we'll pivot to the opportunity. I'll explain what it means to train AI agents on engagement data, and why this is fundamentally different from traditional marketing automation or basic personalization. We'll look at the technical architecture, kept at a level that's strategic, not deep in the weeds, so our CDO can evaluate feasibility and our COO can assess operational impact. Then we'll get concrete with real use cases across the campaign lifecycle, from audience selection to message optimization to real-time execution adjustments. Finally, I'll close with a phased roadmap and clear ownership recommendations so we can leave this room with alignment on next steps. Let's dive in. So let's get specific about what we mean by data exhaust. I've broken it into 3 categories that map to the richest signal sources we already have. First, email engagement signals. We send millions of emails, but we typically only look at aggregate open and click rates. The exhaust, the untapped layer, includes things like how long someone actually reads an email, whether they forward it internally, what time patterns emerge for individual contacts, and what content themes consistently drive or kill engagement. Every one of these is a behavioral fingerprint. Second, digital interaction data. When a prospect visits our site, interacts with an ad, or engages with content, they leave behind a detailed trail. Page paths tell us about their journey. Dwell time and scroll depth tell us about genuine interest versus casual browsing. Search queries reveal explicit intent. Most of this gets logged but never analyzed at the individual level. Third, and this is the synthesis layer, all of these signals combine to reveal prospect and customer intent, topic affinity, buying stage indicators, channel preferences, and early warning signs of churn or disengagement. This is the intelligence layer that AI agents can learn from. The critical point on this slide: all of this data exists in our ecosystem today. We're generating it, we're just letting it evaporate. Now let's be honest about where we are versus where this opportunity can take us. This isn't about blame, it's about recognizing the gap so we can close it deliberately. On the left, our current reality. Our email platform has engagement data. Our web analytics tool has behavioral data. Our ad platforms have click data. Our CRM has relationship data, and they rarely talk to each other at the level of granularity needed for intelligent action. When we build campaigns, we use segment-level averages. Tech buyers in the Northeast opened at 18% last quarter. That's useful, but it's blunt. Our A/B testing is manual, takes weeks to yield results, and optimizes one variable at a time. And most of our reporting is backward-looking. We learn what happened after the budget is already spent. On the right, the future state, a unified data layer where engagement signals from every channel flow into a common behavioral model. AI agents that understand individual level patterns and can predict what content, channel, timing, and message will resonate, not for a segment, but for a specific person. Continuous optimization where the agent learns from every interaction in near real time. And predictive adjustments, the agent flags underperforming campaigns and recommends changes before they fail. This shift is not incremental. It's a fundamental change in how we execute marketing. I want to pause here because I know what you might be thinking. We already have marketing automation. How is this different? It's a fair and important question. Marketing automation is rule-based. If someone opens email A, send email B. If they visit the pricing page, flag them as a lead. These rules are static. Someone on the team wrote them, and they execute the same way every time until someone rewrites them. They don't learn, they don't adapt, and they certainly can't synthesize thousands of behavioral signals across channels to make nuanced decisions. AI agents are fundamentally different. They ingest all of that data exhaust we discussed: email engagement, digital behavior, intent signals, and they learn patterns. They identify that a specific contact engages best with short-form content on Tuesday mornings via email but prefers long-form video content when served through social on weekends. No human could track that across millions of contacts, but an agent can. Critically, agents get smarter over time. Every campaign becomes training data. The value compounds, and they can reason about trade-offs. Should we maximize reach or relevance for this particular campaign objective? That's judgment, not just execution. This is what lets your marketing team shift from being campaign operators to campaign strategists. Let me walk you through the architecture at a strategic level. This is the pipeline that turns raw data exhaust into trained agents that actively improve marketing execution. Step 1 is capture. We need to ensure that granular engagement events, not just aggregate metrics, are being streamed from our email platform, web analytics, ad platforms, and CRM. Most of these systems already emit this data. The question is whether we're collecting it at the right fidelity and storing it in a way that's usable. Step 2 is unify and enrich. This is where our CDO's team plays a critical role. We need identity resolution to stitch anonymous and known behaviors together. We need behavioral scoring frameworks that quantify engagement depth. We need intent signal mapping so we know what actions correlate with buying readiness. And temporal sequencing, understanding not just what someone did, but in what order and over what time frame. Step 3 is train agents. This is where the AI models are built. Pattern recognition across millions of engagement records. Propensity models that predict who will engage. Content affinity models that match the right message to the right person. Channel preference models that determine the best way to reach them. Step 4 is activate. The trained agents plug directly into campaign execution, informing targeting, selecting content dynamically, optimizing send times, and making real-time adjustments as engagement data flows back in. It becomes a continuous loop. Let's get concrete about what these agents actually do in the context of campaign execution. I've mapped 5 capabilities across the campaign lifecycle. First, predictive audience scoring. Instead of selecting audiences based on firmographic segments or last quarter's engagement, the agent analyzes behavioral patterns to predict who is most likely to engage with this specific campaign. It's not just who opened emails recently, it's who has shown affinity for this topic at this stage of their journey through these channels. Second, dynamic content matching. The agent selects or recommends content variants based on what it has learned about individual preferences, not just A/B testing two options, but intelligently matching from a library of content assets. Third, send time and channel optimization at the individual level. Not Tuesday at 10 a.m. works best for our list, but this specific contact is most responsive on Thursday afternoons via email and Saturday mornings via social. Fourth, in-flight adjustments. The agent monitors real-time engagement as a campaign rolls out and can shift budget, adjust targeting, or swap creative before the campaign ends, not after. Fifth, automated learning. Every campaign result feeds back into the agent's training data, making the next campaign smarter. This is the compounding effect I mentioned earlier. The potential impact is significant. Up to 60% improvement in content relevance and 2 to 4 times typical engagement lift when these capabilities are deployed together. I mentioned at the beginning that this opportunity sits at the intersection of marketing, digital, and operations. Let me make the ownership model explicit, because ambiguity here is what kills these initiatives. On the strategic side, the CMO owns campaign strategy and should drive the prioritization of which use cases we tackle. First, which campaigns, which audiences, which channels get agent-driven intelligence. First, the CDO owns the data infrastructure, ensuring we can capture, unify, and enrich engagement data at the necessary granularity, and oversees the development and training of the AI agents themselves. The COO ensures that agent-driven processes integrate smoothly into existing campaign workflows without creating operational chaos, and owns the scaling plan. And jointly, all three of you own KPIs, governance, and ethical guardrails, especially around data privacy and responsible AI use. On the operational execution side, the marketing team needs to define which engagement signals are most meaningful for campaign success. The digital and data teams build the unified data layer and the models. Operations ensures that agents are embedded into actual workflows, not just running in a sandbox. And the continuous feedback loop, measuring agent performance, identifying gaps, retraining, is a shared responsibility. This is a cross-functional initiative by nature. The good news is you three are in this room together, which is exactly where alignment starts. Here's a realistic phased roadmap that gets us from where we are today to full agent-driven campaign execution within 12 months. Phase 1 is foundation, spanning the first 3 months. This is where we audit every data source in our marketing and digital ecosystem, identify gaps in what we're capturing, and build or configure the unified engagement data layer. We also establish baseline metrics, current campaign performance, engagement rates, conversion rates, so we can measure the impact of everything that follows. This phase is primarily CDO-led with strong input from marketing on what data matters most. Phase 2 is pilot, months 3 through 6. We start with email engagement data because it's typically the richest and most structured. We train initial agent models on historical email engagement patterns and run pilot campaigns where agent-driven audience selection and targeting go head-to-head against our current approach. This gives us measurable proof of concept. Phase 3 is expand. Months 6 through 9. We bring in digital channel data, web, ads, content engagement, and activate more sophisticated capabilities like dynamic content matching and individual level send time optimization. Phase 4 is scale. Months 9 through 12. Full agent-driven campaign execution across channels with real-time optimization loops. At this point, agents are learning continuously and the compounding value is in motion. This isn't a waterfall, phases overlap, but the sequencing manages risk while building momentum. Let me bring this all together with 4 key points and 3 concrete next steps. First, the data exhaust from your email and digital engagement activities is one of your most valuable and most underutilized strategic assets. It's being generated every day, and it's largely evaporating. Second, AI agents trained on this data represent a step change in campaign execution capability, not incremental improvement, but a fundamentally different way of operating that works at individual scale across millions of contacts. Third, this isn't a marketing project or a data project or an operations project. It requires all 3 functions aligned around a common vision, shared KPIs, and clear ownership. Fourth, we don't need to boil the ocean. A phased 12-month roadmap, starting with a data foundation and email-focused pilot, can deliver measurable results within 6 months while building toward full-scale transformation. For next steps, I'm recommending 3 actions. 1. Within the next 2 weeks, let's schedule a joint data audit that brings together marketing, digital, and operations teams to map every engagement data source and identify gaps. 2. By next quarter, let's identify 2 to 3 campaigns that will serve as our pilot for agent-driven targeting. 3. Within 30 days, let's establish a shared governance framework and agree on the success metrics we'll use to evaluate this initiative. The data is there. The technology is ready. The question is whether we move on this together. I believe the answer should be yes.